I was invited this evening to express an idea, a thought, an opinion on how to better the state of West Virginia.
Scott Miller is the executive director of an organization known as Just for Kids. And the first question, Scott, a simple one, tell us about Just for Kids.
I'd be happy to. We work in Raleigh, Fayette, and Wyoming counties, and we work as a team with local law enforcement and prosecuting attorneys and child protective services. When they get a child or case where there's been abuse, they call us and they bring a child within 48 hours to our office. We have a child-friendly space where they can play and not feel threatened by the situation. And then we have nationally trained interviewers who interview the child about what happened. If they disclose abuse, then we record all of those sessions, and then of course law enforcement can use those in prosecution. But then if they do disclose abuse, we provide counseling to the child and their family and some advocacy with the family. And then the third thing that we do is that we do a lot of awareness and prevention training in the community.
So now a little more about Just for Kids so that you'll know next time you hear the term or see the phrase or see Just for Kids listed somewhere in your newspaper or hear it in the media in some way, shape, or form. One of the things you talked about today that you would like to see happening is you would like to see more women involved in the decision-making process. So I have a two-part question. Number one, why? And number two, how do we get it done?
Well, the why is because I've worked in state government and in social service arenas for over 20 years. And my experience has been that when women are involved in making decisions, the decisions are more balanced and often make more sense than when they're focused on a male-dominated approach. Now, I forgot your second question.
Then how do we accomplish that? How do we get more women involved?
Well, I think that's fairly easy, although probably more complicated than it sounds. I think the reason that women don't get as involved is because the system is designed for men. And the programs that I've gotten involved with where women really are contributors are systems where we don't use Robert's Rules of Order, where we use consensus and collaboration. And that's how I believe we can really move forward. There are plenty of women who are very interested. I believe because in a majority rules, Robert's Rules sort of approach, women recognize that they're not going to be seen as players. And when we can say every voice matters, we need to listen to everybody, then more women will be involved.
Okay, that's Scott Miller, the Executive Director of Just for Kids. Dr. Marshall Washington is the president of New River Community and Technical College, and you were talking a little bit today about education. How must education change, if at all, as we look to the future here in West Virginia?
We must look to our teachers who are educated and who are the experts in understanding standards, and we must use them in making decisions and not just base it upon politicians or individuals who may be just administrators in really changing that particular focus. We need to have a well-educated workforce, and we need our teachers to lead us to where that needs to happen.
Do you think that this is a case where we put too much emphasis on administration rather than education?
Most definitely.
And how do we change that?
I think we change that by just turning that around and making sure that we put teachers in the driving seat, and that they're always included in our decisions that we make. That we also look to them to say, what are the standards that students need to meet? Not necessarily standardized tests, but making sure that the students are reaching those outcomes based upon teacher input, not necessarily administrative input.
What about the curriculum itself? It's changed a lot over the years. Let's face it, we're teaching things today in technology that we never even dreamed about years ago. What sort of changes do you see coming along those lines over the next decade or so?
I see that we are going to use technology much more. We're going to use more hands-on experiences for students, that students have to learn by touching and doing. We still need students to read and understand the theory behind what we do, but we also need that coupled with technology.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Easy. George Carrico is the director of the Brownfields Assistance Center. Have I got that right?
That is correct.
At Marshall University. So question number one, tell us about the center. What's that all about?
Well, that was established back in 2005 as an act of our state legislative system to put in Brownfield Assistance Centers, both one at Marshall and one at West Virginia University. And together we work all across West Virginia, working with communities on revitalizing brownfield properties. That's the old industrial sites, abandoned houses, vacant lots, anything that's sitting there that's not really producing anything for the local economy. Those are sites we want to try to look at to revitalize.
Okay, and as we look at the future of our state, how important is a job like this? What does this mean to the people of West Virginia?
Well, first of all, these are the sites that already have existing infrastructure. Many of them do. So rather than us going out here to greenfields, as we call them, and spending all that extra money to get the water line out there, get the electric out there, do all those things, why not redevelop these sites that already have those things in place? Overall, it can actually be a cost savings to both the state and to industry and businesses that are looking to locate or expand their businesses here in West Virginia.
How much of this has been done and how much is out there to be done over the next, say, decade or so?
We have thousands upon thousands. If you could just imagine the abandoned gasoline stations that are around our communities. Those are great locations for new small business, everything from farmer markets to little pocket parks, even little things like that. It's not just economic development with jobs, it's also about community revibrancy. When you've got a community that's got eyesores around, the 3 vacant houses over here, the abandoned business there, those are the things that really draw that community down. If you can revamp those, it not only may bring some new jobs, but it brings a whole new community spirit to that area.
How do people get the expertise to do this work?
I have a wealth of folks all around West Virginia that are environmental consultants to help handle the environmental components. Then we work with our economic development folks across the state, local, regional, and state agencies. All those together, we have a plethora of knowledge and expertise that's available to folks to help them out.
Okay, very good. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you.
Dr. Greg Rosenkrantz is the professor and chairman of the Department of Medicine at the West Virginia University, Charleston. You are talking a little bit today about healthcare, obviously, something you're pretty familiar with.
Yes, sir.
Years ago, when I was a kid, doctors made house calls. They don't do that anymore, and yet we still have house calls being made with a little different technology.
We do, and I think house calls can be made via FaceTime, they can be made via Skype. Some physicians indeed still do make the old-fashioned house call as well. It's rare, but it occurs. But I think technology will allow us to reinvent the house call.
People hear so much about West Virginians and health. We are too obese. We have problems with too many smokers. We don't take care of ourselves. We don't get enough exercise. Our blood pressure is hitting the sky. How does technology help us stay healthier?
I think it gives us real-time data about our habits. We all, despite what we might think, we believe we do more, we believe we exercise more and eat less than we really do. Technology is the data, and it will help drive our behavior.
Some people say, well, I'm just a little overwhelmed by technology, but some of these things are very simple, aren't they?
They are. They need to be wireless, they need to be effortless, the data needs to be real-time, and we don't have to be successful, you can't input the data, it has to just arrive and then be interpreted.
We're talking all of this basically from the patient standpoint, but what about from the standpoint of the physicians? Is this helping them to become more efficient?
I think it clearly does. I think it clearly allows physicians to spend time on what the important things are with patients. It frees up time. I think with the coming Affordable Care Act, we're going to have a much larger volume of patients to see and treat and to care for. And the traditional model of caring for one-on-one as an individual, we're going to have to care for larger groups of patients more efficiently, and this is one way we can do it.
So much has changed just over the past couple of decades, and yet I have a feeling we're going to see many more changes in the next 10 years or so. What do you see? What do you think will be the major changes we'll see in the healthcare field over the next decade?
I believe that you'll see a coalescence of facilities. I think just like hardware stores in the 70s and 80s have gone the way, and we now have Walmart and we have Lowe's and Home Depot. that healthcare will coalesce into several large entities across this country, and the days of the individual doctor's practice at some point will be gone.
As our doctors are getting their educations, and nurses and all of those in the medical field, is school changing for them?
It is. We're trying to leverage technology as well. The traditional setting of going to nursing school or going to medical school or pharmacy or whatever professional school, law school, we have to flip the classroom, and by that we have to use technology so that you listen to the lectures at home and you come in and you engage in a discussion in the classroom as opposed to going home and doing homework after listening to a lecture.
So finally, does bedside manner still count?
It always counts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah Hill is the CEO of the Summersville Regional Medical Center, and not everyone can go to the Mayo Clinic or Johns Hopkins, and I would imagine that many of our small town medical centers are facing quite a few challenges these days. What are some of those challenges as we look ahead to the future of West Virginia?
The challenges are largely in the payment system and the demands of patients. We have encouraged a system where patients are dependent and they want what they want, not necessarily what the professionals think they need. We're in declining reimbursements. We have, in some areas, more facilities than we need, or facilities that are not the appropriate size, costly buildings. The system needs completely revamped, and we need to encourage patient responsibility. We cannot save the world. Patients have to be responsible for the choices they make in life, and they have to have some accountability for their health care, including financial accountability.
It's all changing so much. Many rural areas simply don't have a hospital anymore. Does that put more of a burden on you in Summersville, and if so, how do you handle it?
It is not really more of a burden for cities like Summersville. The burden comes to the communities that have lost their health care. It's hard to attract industry and jobs to a community when there is no health care, but we simply cannot afford to have hospitals in every community. We've got to be regionally accommodating for the specialty services and try to keep primary care in the communities and help industry understand that primary care is what's needed to locate in the community. Specialty care is close by. So we have a mindset we have to change with industry as well as with healthcare.
How do you find good medical personnel these days?
It is difficult. It is very difficult. Physicians don't find the profession as rewarding as it used to be. It is very challenging. It's largely dictated by others as to what they should do. Their education sometimes isn't put into play the way they want it to be. So finding folks coming out of schools is hard. Finding someone to locate in a rural area is even harder and stay there because you need continuity. You need the provider to stay for a number of years.
What sort of changes would you like to see made toward health care that would help West Virginians in the future?
I would like to see, first of all, an emphasis on responsibility. That as we get into a system where patients are more financially responsible, that their choices of lifestyle influence that financial responsibility. And I would like to see us look at every community, decide what that community should have for health care, and assist those communities to develop that. It may end what they currently have, but it will be appropriately sized, and it will allow the healthcare dollars to go to that community for primary care and to regional centers for the more expensive care.
And finally, what sort of changes do you think we can see in the Summersville Regional Health Center in the next decade?
I think we will continue to be a rural healthcare facility that offers primary services and some specialty services, grow those to have proficient and expert providers in those fields, and continue our relationships with Morgantown and Charleston and the hospitals that handle the complicated issues. We need to realize who we are and who we're not and become good at that.
Terrific. Great. That's it. Jim Smallridge is the Director of Community Development for Coventry Cares of West Virginia. Simple question first, what is Coventry Cares?
We are one of the 3 Medicaid managed care organizations right here in the state of West Virginia, and we serve about 63,000 individuals in all 55 counties of West Virginia.
Okay, when it comes to Medicaid, Medicare, it becomes extremely complicated for a lot of people. What do you see for the future as far as health care is concerned? Are we going to be able to simplify things a little bit? What's going to happen? Any idea?
Well, lots of ideas,
Okay.
but you know, it's hard to say what direction it's going to take. I think to simplify and get people the best care they can for the most efficient, and in the most efficient way is how we're going to see healthcare go. We already see that. But there's going to be more and more of an emphasis on healthy living styles, on preventive care, because that's what people need. I mean, that's going to keep them healthier longer. For example, diabetes, adult onset diabetes doesn't start when you're 50 years old. It starts when you're 15. So we need to make sure that people are living a good lifestyle, living healthy, and you know, that they're going to the physician for preventative reasons, not putting things off until it's catastrophic.
What do you feel people can do to help lead healthier lives? What are some of the tools they can use?
Sure. First of all, they need to see their physician. They need to see their healthcare provider on a regular basis. They also need to, a lot of it comes down to just common sense. If you're eating healthy and if you're exercising, you got to move. You need to do the simple things. It's not always about taking a high-end medication, although sometimes that is required. But if we can get people to move, if we can get them to eat healthy and just live in a common sense way, chances are their health care is going to improve also.
Okay, now as the manager for community development for Coventry Cares West Virginia, exactly what are your duties? What do you do?
Well, I manage an outreach staff, and as I said, we have members throughout the state, and we essentially, we do a lot of things, but essentially what our goal is to do is to go out and spread that message that we just talked about. We want to make sure that if we have a pregnant future mother, that she's going to her visits to the doctor before she has the baby. That she's seeing them, that she's seeing the physician, and that she's taking care of that baby before it's born. And then we want to make sure that if that child comes into our care from an insurance standpoint, that they are getting their well child visits, that they are getting their vaccinations, that they are if there is a medical problem, that they're being treated on a regular basis. But we also want to make folks aware of the services that are available to them if they have our product, but also whether they're on Medicaid or not. We want people in West Virginia to be living a healthy lifestyle.
Are we making any progress?
I think we are. I really do. I think that, you know, still we've got problems. I mean, we have problems with things as simple as portion control.
Sure.
You know, when it comes to eating, and that's how we were raised. You know, clean your plate.
That's right.
And we live here in the buckle of the gravy belt.
Now we clean it 2 or 3 times.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I think that we are making I think that we're making people more aware. Are people making lifestyle changes? Yeah, I think they are. But it's a long drawn out process, and it doesn't happen overnight. But the first thing that we have to do is what we're doing is we're out there and we're making people aware of the problem, and then hopefully they can make the right lifestyle changes after that.
Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Kendra Vargas is the president of Concord University and higher education. We hear so much about it today, and it seems like there's a college on every street corner compared to what it used to be. How is the face of higher education changing, particularly here in West Virginia?
Well, I think all colleges and universities in the country, not just in West Virginia, are facing a lot of challenges. We have less state and federal support. We have students that really, really want access. The face of college students are changing too. We have older students than we used to. There are many more adults coming back to school at this point, and we have a lot of students that are working. So we don't necessarily just have the traditional age students who come and live on campus in a residential setting. It's a much broader base of students than once was the case.
Speaking of broad base at Concord, I know many of the students are obviously not from West Virginia, but here in our state we hear so much about students not doing well. With their test scores not doing well as far as high school education as a whole. Have you had to adapt at Concord to deal with that, and how do you help students make that transition from high school to college?
Well, there's a number of things, and we're changing the way we look at developmental education. to offer students a different way to be successful. So if they come in and generally the areas that they're probably the least well prepared are in math and in English. And both of those areas, they have to be ready to go forward. So we're doing some things that they call stretch classes. They come in, and even though these are classes that are not offered for credit, they can take 2 in one semester, get through, and what all the research has shown is that, particularly in math, if a student takes a math class and they're not successful, they may drop out of school. Well, they may not be a math major, that may not be their area, and that's no reason to disqualify a person from an education long term. And so we work very hard with them to get them through those classes. We have excellent tutors, and we have online tutoring. We have a lot of different opportunities than we used to. And if someone just looks like they're not quite ready, we actually refer them to places like the community colleges to get prepared and then come back, because we do want them back and we want them to get that 4-year degree, but they just may not be quite ready.
Those that are prepared and are ready have a lot of choices because the competition is out there. Why Concord? Tell me what makes Concord special.
Well, I think Concord's special because for 140 or more than 140 years, we've focused on quality education. We have very, very committed faculty who are, I'd say they're hard-nosed in terms of wanting students to get the very, very best educations possible. We have one of the highest percentages of faculty who have PhDs and they're teaching. We don't have graduate students in our classes. We have graduate students who take classes, but they are not teaching our classes. And so they get the benefit, students get the benefit from the very first day when they get there of people with the very highest level of credential, and that matters. Many of them have credentialing in teaching and others in other content areas. We have very, very high placement rates out of Concord to medical programs, to law programs. We just signed an agreement with WVU that our accounting majors who do at a certain level don't have to take the GMAT because they're so well prepared. So I think they work very hard. They're very ready when they leave to do other things. And we also have the McNair program that prepares them to go on into PhD programs. So that's kind of a focus for us, and I think that we're very committed to the quality.
Now, there are many older folks out there that may have not been in school for a number of years and may not have any college experience whatsoever, and yet they're interested in making a better life for themselves, and they want to go back to school. What about the non-traditional students? What's there for them?
Well, we have a lot of non-traditional students today. And more people are coming back, and I think that the biggest challenge for them is to convince them that they're going to be way, way better at what we ask them to do than our traditional students. Because they have the benefit of experience, they know what they want to do. And in all the years I've been teaching, some of the students that are in their 50s, they're killing everyone in the class. I mean, they're A students. Because they are committed, they're on it. And so it's kind of exciting to see them come back, and we really work to encourage them to do so.
And what about the future? What would you personally like to see for Concord over the next 10 to 20 years?
I'd like to see us grow a little bit. I think that we are about 3,000 students, and I think I'd like to see it become a campus with about 4,000 students. We teach both on campus and here in Beckley, and I think that I'd like to see growth here in Beckley. We'd like to have more science programs. We've been able to attract a lot of students into several of our science majors. And those students often stay here in West Virginia and become doctors and become clinicians and a number of other health-related areas. And I think the state can use that, and I think that's important.
And are you listening to students?
Yes, we do listen to students.
How do you do it?
How do we do it? We do it through surveys. We do regular evaluations in every class. I personally, as the acting president, go to every single University 100 class, which is like an orientation class, and I ask them to please make sure to come see me, let me know what they want, let us know what it is that they're interested in.
Are you ever surprised by what you learn?
I I've been there a long time, so I'm not sure I'm really surprised, but I'm always pleased that they're very open, and I do appreciate them giving me their input.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Marcia Kronsing is the president of Bluefield State College, and higher education is something on the minds of so many people today. We're trying to do better. We want to see that our young people are educated, and in some cases, people are going back to school themselves. But what about the face of higher education in West Virginia? Do you think it's changing, and is it going to change even more over the next 10 to 20 years?
Thank you. Yes, the face of higher education certainly is changing. We're seeing many more non-traditional students, adult students who are coming back to receive their education, people coming back to complete a degree. So I think that's a trend that will continue over the next several years. And that's important because as West Virginia needs to increase the number of degrees, increase our educational attainment level, that's definitely part of it.
Bluefield State has grown from at one time being known as Bluefield State Teachers College and being basically a school for the people in that immediate area. Now you get students from everywhere. How do you compete? There are colleges on every street corner. What's specific about Bluefield State that makes students want to come here?
Well, thank you. We're focusing primarily on student success. Access is important. It's important for students to be able to get into college these days, but that doesn't mean anything if they're not able to complete their degrees. So our focus is on the individual student, making sure that they get the support, get whatever services they need to be able to graduate, to cross the stage at the end of their time and get that diploma. We want to focus on that graduation element, and having that personal attention is something that's very critical and does draw students to us.
Here in West Virginia, we hear so much talk about the economy. We hear a lot of talk about jobs. We hear that young people leave the state because they've got to go somewhere else to find something. Does higher education play a role in that at all? Is there anything higher education can do to make those circumstances better?
Absolutely. I just spoke about partnerships and the importance of higher education institutions, our colleges and universities being partnered very closely with our communities. We are working very closely together in Bluefield to sustain, to help turn our economy into something that's vibrant and really will create jobs. One way that we do that, in addition to producing graduates, is having entrepreneurship education. More that we can help students think creatively, be able to take their own ideas, put those into action, and perhaps begin to spawn their own companies. That's something that we think can also very much help West Virginia's economy.
What courses are students looking for now, and in turn, what do you think they might be looking for in the future?
At Bluefield State, we have a lot of students who are looking to our nursing and radiologic technology programs, critical needs in healthcare all across the state, all across the nation, in fact. So that's something that's very important to us. We also have a number of students enrolled in business, teacher education, obviously that's our heritage. So we have students enrolled in a number of professional areas where they'll go out and be able to get jobs because those areas are in demand.
Students are concerned about the future. They are concerned about finding a job once they graduate. Does the school help them in job placement?
Absolutely. We do have career fairs. In fact, as I'm networking, or other members of Bluefield State's community are networking within the city and within the region, we learn about opportunities that are out there, and we provide that information back to our Career Services Center, get that word out to our students and say we have job opportunities or internship opportunities. It's very important also to have students have work experience while they're still taking classes, such as the internship or co-op experiences.
Colleges and universities, for the most part, many years ago, used to be their own entity. And now we see so many schools working with other schools and just making things better all the way around. Does Bluefield State work with other colleges and universities to help make things a little better for students?
Absolutely. Again, that's critical because we have so many students these days across the country that will transfer. We have a number of partnerships with two-year colleges, community colleges in West Virginia, as well as right across the border in Virginia, where students can seamlessly apply the 2 years that they've had at those institutions into a 4-year degree at Bluefield State. We have a number of those. We also have a very unique partnership with Regis College in Boston, where our rad tech students can take a year, spend some time and get certified in nuclear medicine, which is a certification we do not offer here in this state. But they're able to get that certification, come back to Bluefield, get their rad tech degree, and so they're that much more marketable and visible in the marketplace.
You think we'll always see the college or university as a place where you can stroll across campus, or is all of that changing and everything's going to be online in the future? What do you think?
Well, we see a lot of online education, but we also see, and I hear from our students, how important the face-to-face, the online, the face-to-face, the personal touch is compared to the online. Students like that ability to interact with one another, and I think that's important for our society as well, because we need, as human beings, to be able to sit down face-to-face, work out problems, issues, and be able to talk with one another without having to be using technology as an intermediary all the time.
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Jim Brown is the superintendent of Raleigh County Schools. Education, we've talked a lot about it lately. How is the face of education changing as we look to the future of West Virginia?
Well, I think the change is significant. We just now are embarking on our implementation of the next generation Common Core standards. It's going to change how teachers teach and students learn. In our district, we took on the challenge of really increasing student engagement through a one-to-one initiative. We've coined that as iRaleigh. We think it's really going to change the face of our classrooms in Raleigh County schools.
How do we get parents more involved as we look to the future? What can we do?
Well, this is a partnership. It's not just the school system alone, it's a community. We see that today, all the different organizations. I've already heard people talking about education, but it also takes parents in the home, really making sure kids come to school every day. That's the first step. We can't educate them if they don't come to school, but then making sure that they're minding their P's and Q's, whether or not mom and dad are just checking how they're doing with their work and those kinds of things. Really just talking to them about how school went today. That's just a tremendous first step.
One of the things that is changing rapidly is the curriculum itself. The things that we used to learn years ago, suddenly it's not that they're not important, but there are other things now that are taking priority. How do you see the curriculum changing over the next couple of decades?
Well, for so long, the first thing we did was teach kids how to raise their hand and ask questions. We put them in nice, neat little rows. And what employers are telling us now in the community is they want students to come out of high school being able to team, work in pairs, work in partnerships, be able to produce a document, not just regurgitate information. This little device I have today, the electronics that are out there, information is at our fingertips every minute of the day. So what are we going to be doing with that information? And that's where the challenge is really coming in the classroom, taking that knowledge and then putting it into some type of practical utilization.
How do you get the most out of that technology?
Well, first of all, it cannot replace a teacher. There's nothing in a classroom more important. Research is clear. It's has the most impact on student achievement than anything else we can do in a school system. But it's there to support teachers and to make their job maybe a little bit easier. We also know we have to have our students engaged, and this is how they're functioning. Technology is a big part of who we are in society. We have to embrace it, make it part of students' learning, and I believe we're going to get the results because of it.
As a school superintendent, are you an administrator first and educator second, or educator first and administrator second?
I'm all about the kids. If I were in this job and my focus weren't on students, then I would not be effective. I will always be a teacher first. I don't look at titles. I'm still doing the same work I did several years ago from just a little different perspective.
Do you think that is a problem within school systems itself, in as much as it seems like in sometimes they've become a little administrative heavy, as we've seen in various surveys done here in West Virginia?
Well, I think it's how you utilize your administrative team. We look at it quite differently. One of the things that we ask first, every administrator in an interview, what does good instruction look like? We don't need building managers. We need people to help us go lead. that instructional process in our schools. And there's a role to play as administrators. And I think it's an important part of our educational system.
As we look to the future, if you could wave a magic wand, what are your biggest needs for Raleigh County?
We go back to the fundamentals. Our students have to learn to read. That is the fundamental premise of everything that's in the future. We're seeing right now one of the gaps is, especially with some of the math curriculum, if students don't read at grade level, they're going to struggle with mathematics. So that's that fundamental piece that we really have to focus on. And if we do that well, I think everything else will come into order.
Kids have to study. Kids have to go to class. Kids have to do certain things to get better. What does a superintendent do to get better?
Just always being a lifelong learner. There isn't a day that I come to work I don't learn something new. I think we have to be able to look outside the box, provide the necessary leadership, but at the same time, get out of the way for people to do the work.
Thank you.
You're most welcome, sir.
Bill Baker is the executive director of the Jobs Foundation. So question number one, rather simple, what's the Jobs Foundation?
Economic development.
Okay, tell us about it.
We try to bring businesses and jobs into West Virginia. Matter of fact, the Jobs Foundation now, it no longer exists. We kind of did away with it because we have a couple other foundations. Ford Southern West Virginia and also Pinecrest are two foundations doing the same thing, so it's kind of redundant. And so I'd rather run Pinecrest and the Ford Southern West Virginia. We market the Pinecrest Business and Technology Park mainly. Matter of fact, we're doing a little over $1 million worth of improvements out there, putting the highway all the way through, and it's prime property. It's probably one of the best business technology parks in the state of West Virginia. So that's what I do mostly.
All right, throw a few secrets our way. What things look like down the road over the next decade or so? What do we got coming?
Well, as I indicated in my speech or my remarks in there, is I think that potential that the Boy Scout, the Bechtel Summit brings, I think we really haven't gotten into that yet. I think that over the next 10 years, people that are visiting Southern West Virginia are getting exposed to Southern West Virginia. The Boy Scouts marketing West Virginia is almost heaven. I think it's going to pay off. I think it's going to bring business leaders in to bring their kids to the summit or the Jamboree or the World Jamboree in 2019, and I think that they're going to find our secret, that we have the beauty and the great people of West Virginia, and I think that that's the thing I'm counting on for the future of West Virginia. I think it's bright, and I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be small business. It's not going to be anything large.
What are some of the organizations and groups that you work with to get the job done?
Forward Southern West Virginia. That's a nonprofit 501c3. We own the Tar Building uptown, which is our offices, and we own that building that we lease out to different businesses, and of course our office is there. We also own a building on Neville Street called the Thrifty Building that Father Tom Acker, who was the executive director of Forward Southern West Virginia. I'm chairman of the board. He's no longer with us. That he had the foresight to get money from late Senator Byrd, and we did that. So that's one business building that we're trying to fill. We've got one floor filled and 3 others to fill.
Can the average West Virginian do anything to help improve our economic outlook?
I think they did that during the Jamboree when we had the community service projects and all of these small communities in Southern West Virginia. We targeted, as a steering committee, and I chaired that steering committee, we targeted 9 counties as impact counties. And the community service, the West Virginia Citizens Conservation Corps kind of headed that for the steering committee. And they included a lot of volunteers, our West Virginians that are proud of the state of West Virginia, and they showed these scouts coming in and their families what they can expect in West Virginia. So the average West Virginian is doing a lot through that program to do economic development. I think in the long run it'll really pay off.
I see reports all the time and various surveys about our economic future. But I ask you now, how do things look for Southern West Virginia in particular over the next 10 years or so?
Well, I think it's slow right now. I think it's going to be a time coming. I think it depends on the national economy. I think as the national economy picks up, the visitors to West Virginia are seeing the real West Virginia and the people here, and I think it will pick up. I think that, again, it's going to be slow because I think the national economy is going to come back slow. But I'm a strong believer in the future of West Virginia. I think that we've got a lot of great things to offer, and our people and our resources are the best part of it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
Bill Rainey, a familiar face not only around southern West Virginia, but around the entire state, the head of the West Virginia Coal Association. And Bill, I'm going to ask you right off the bat, why is coal important?
Well, it's been an absolute huge part of our heritage, and there's very few people in West Virginia that say they don't have a dad, an uncle, a brother, someone they know that had something to do with the coal industry. Huge, huge part of our history and heritage. But it's also an equally huge part of our economy. We employ about 20,000 people directly digging coal. And you take that and multiply it by all those jobs that depend on someone mining coal. So you're up in the, somewhere in the 80,000 range of West Virginians working because a coal miner's working. And so it's an enormous part. Now, you go to low-cost electricity, we know how to make electricity better than anybody else out of coal. 97% of our electricity comes from our coal. And it's the lowest cost electricity in the country, except what they make with water out west. So, you know, we have a real advantage here. And people don't realize how much they depend on coal when they think about it. All they think about is electricity comes out of the wall. So, you know, now we've got to figure out how to tie all that together, and they understand how important a coal miner is to the use of their computer and their air conditioning and all the nice things that we're used to.
And yet, from the time when you and I were kids, the coal mining business has really changed a lot, hasn't it?
It's modernized, it's unbelievable, the innovations. You go in a mine today and it's a Star Wars environment. We got leading edge technologies. You'll go in a mine and you'll go by 300 feet of computer banks before you ever get to the face. And it's all computerized, it's all sent outside. People miles away will get up in the morning and plug up to the mine through their computer and find out what equipment's operating and how much the pump's working and who all showed up to work. And so it's remarkable. People think today some people think we're using mules and pickaxes. And it's anything but. It's an absolute unbelievable environment, and every one of those fellas are going somewhere where no human being's ever been before. And they're digging coal out of the mountain that the good Lord put here, and we're trying to be good stewards of that.
Just about everyone in West Virginia knows about the ongoing battle with Washington and the Obama administration. There is a call for cleaner coal. You're not necessarily against that effort, are you?
Not against clean coal at all, and you know, we got about as clean as it's ever going to get.
Right.
Now it's black and it's in the earth and it's going to make your hands dirty when it comes out of the ground. And but we've had so much research, we're almost to the point of no emissions power plant. And now they're wanting us to control carbon. Well, there's no technology to do that. So they're asking the power plants that use coal to do the impossible. So they got to give plenty of time for the research to develop and come to fruition on that. But clean coal is here today. Coal is as clean as it possibly can be today. Can we make improvements? Absolutely we can. And we're going to continue to do that. And we got the universities not only in Morgantown and Huntington, but we've got them in Lexington, and we've got them in Blacksburg, and we've got them in Pittsburgh. They're all looking to how to improve the use of coal, not only to make electricity, but to make steel, and to extract all the tremendous byproducts that come from coal. And we're all working toward that end, but the federal government's got to give you time to do that, and they've got to act like they know that coal is the most prolific resource we have in America. And you would think, because America has more coal than any other country in the world, that everybody would be pulling on the wagon to try to make sure that we become energy secure and energy independent as quickly as we can.
As an innocent bystander, I noticed that Washington gave the automobile manufacturers some time to make sure that the miles per gallon were increased on our cars.
Right.
Also, when we went to no lead in gasoline, things like that. But in each case, as you mentioned, time was there. They were given time to do something. What do you want? What do you think it's going to take for the coal industry, if it is at all possible, to meet the demands of Washington?
Well, I think it's going to take years. and I don't mean decades, I'm talking about give us the same time that the automobile industry had, because it's the same direct impact. The cost of an automobile went up because of all the things they're doing. Now the efficiencies, of course, came along, and people use less gasoline, supposedly, once these things are implemented.
Right.
Same thing holds true with us. You can't all of a sudden change overnight. First of all, the technology doesn't exist, so you got to develop it. But then you got to make sure that the consumer's electric prices do not go through the roof. Our people can't afford to pay more electric rates.
Right.
They simply can't do it. So you've got to allow enough time. I don't know if it's 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, but you've got to give it some space here and let the scientists and the smart people figure this thing out, as opposed to the opinionated journalists.
Final question, what do you see for coal over the next 10 to 20 years?
Well, we hope that we're going to sustain ourselves at 120 tons of production every year in West Virginia. The state government needs it. We're about 13% of the overall economy, the GDP here. It's got to be at a good price. We got to keep that many people working, because our people make a good wage in a rural area where it's very difficult to find that. And they're professionals. They're the best coal miners in the world at what they do. So 100 to 120 million tons will sustain us. We'd like to do a lot more, but it's getting more difficult with the thinner seams, more difficult to get to, more expensive to access. But yet we've got the best coal in the world. So half of the coal that leaves America comes from West Virginia. So we got the export market that is very, very good. And we just got to get to the point where people will let us do what we do best, and that's take care of West Virginians.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Michael Martin is the mayor of Mount Hope, also a thespian and a filmmaker. Quite a bit of talent rolled into one guy right here. But I want to talk a little bit about small town West Virginia. And that ought to be something you're somewhat familiar with as the mayor of Mount Hope.
Somewhat.
Somewhat. How do you think our small towns in this state are going to survive? We've seen a lot of changes, not only in the community of Mount Hope, but other places throughout southern West Virginia and throughout the state and even the nation. Rather tough for a lot of small towns. What's it going to take to survive?
Well, the small town, like many individuals today, needs to be resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
And we get resourceful by taking advantage of those things out there that are within our reach, and taking advantage of cleaning ourselves up, making ourselves a little prettier, and making ourselves nice places to live and work.
And there are a lot of people that are looking for that too. I think people don't realize that there are folks that want to get away from the big cities and would love nothing more than to find a small town, whether it be West Virginia, wherever it might be. But it's up to the people in those towns to get it ready for them.
Well, we not only have to do that, we have to put our best face forward. We have to put a smile on our face, and we have to say welcome. And we have to mean it when we say welcome, because we would like to see you purchase a home here. We would like to see you raise a family here. It hasn't helped us at all that our high school has now been closed. Without a high school, we lack something when one begins to look for a place to raise a family. However, we still have an elementary school in Mount Hope, and high school is 5-6 miles away. So it isn't as if it's a whole different world. We just the big thing is on Friday nights we don't walk over to Municipal Stadium in Mount Hope. We drive over to John P. Duda Stadium in Oak Hill now. So it's a little different that way. We don't have our sports teams, that sort of thing. Nice place to live? Oh yeah, we're a nice place to live. And we're right off Route 19. You get on Route 19 at Mount Hope, and you are, 4 miles from 2 major interstate highways. I can be in Washington, D.C. in 5 hours. I can be in Charlotte, North Carolina in 3. I can be in Raleigh, North Carolina in 4 and a little, and that's not letting any grass grow under my feet. But I can, where my dad used to get me up long before daylight. Sure. When I was young, and we would start the trip to Morgantown and get back way after midnight after watching a football game there. I can get to Morgantown in under 3 hours. and I'm on an interstate highway from my front door within a mile. You can't beat that. I mean, we are accessible today. When I was doing a show called Honey in the Rock, there was a scene in Honey in the Rock where somebody said, "And when do you think they'll ever get roads into this place?"
That's right.
Well, we got roads into this place.
Good deal. Let me ask you this, as the mayor of a small town, what are the biggest challenges? You know, other than breaking up the fights at a council meeting occasionally, but what are your biggest challenges as the mayor?
Now this is going to seem like a foolish answer to you.
Okay.
Barking dogs,
All right.
tall grass, getting people to stop throwing trash on Main Street. Those are the really big daily challenges. Coming up with the dollars to replace sidewalks, to replace streets, to replace street lighting is tough, but you do it a little at a time. You do the best you can with it. Barking dogs.
You don't have anything on that in the handbook, do they?
They don't. And it's a toughie. And you say, I'm going to send the animal warden up and we're going to take that. You can't take my dog.
He's doing the thespian part now, folks, so that's the way that works.
And so it's time to leave that dog alone. But please, stop him barking, would you? He's troubling your neighbors.
What about the future? Let's talk about 10 or 20 years down the road. What do you see for Mount Hope, and really what do you see for small town West Virginia?
Well, I think, you know, one of the speakers just a little before me was Bill Baker. Bill Baker spoke of the Boy Scouts. Do you know that the summit is hard up against Mount Hope?
Mm-hmm.
We share a boundary with the summit. And as a matter of fact, we have talked recently about the possibility of Mount Hope annexing that property into our corporate limits. I think that the Boy Scouts, having built the summit where they did, here in southern West Virginia, in this area, in this region, is going to help us all tremendously.
That's it.